Hi everyone. If you can spot my vanilla cake mishap, just know in the end this cake does not disappoint. Let me show you. Okay, y'all, so I'm actually testing out this vanilla cake recipe that calls for 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, but I wanted to use cake flour and I only had 1 2/3 cups of it. So what I ended up doing was, to make up the difference, added 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour plus 1/3 cup of all-purpose flour, and that brought me to the 2.5 cups of flour that the recipe requires. Now I'm adding 2 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder and then 3/4 teaspoon of salt. And I've done a combination of cake flour and all-purpose flour before, so I wasn't that concerned about having to do it now. Now, once I got it mixed real well, I am using 1 stick of soft butter, room temp butter, along with 1/4 cup of oil. Now, the recipe calls for 1.5 sticks of butter, y'all, but I just had to try this butter oil combination for a moist cake. And I'm going to just whip this all together until the oil and the butter combines and become kind of creamy, on the creamy side, just like that. Nice and incorporated. And then once I get that all together, y'all, I'm going to add 1 2/3 cups of sugar that I'm slowly pouring into the cream mixture. Then once I get my sugar added, y'all, I'm going to kind of let this beat a little bit, scrape down the bowl, and let it beat some more and get some air into it, and let it beat for about a couple of minutes till it gets nice and fluffy. Just like you see here. You see how nice, fluffy, and cloudy that mix is? Like that. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is to add my eggs. The recipe calls for 3 large eggs. You know those eggs have to be at room temperature. And here I am adding the eggs on low speed. One egg. Let's get that one. And I'm kind of letting these mix of about 30 seconds in between, y'all. But that's the last egg. And then once I get those eggs in there and mix for 30 seconds each, I'm going to turn up the speed and let them be on a medium speed for about 3 minutes, y'all, to get it nice and fluffy. And now after 3 minutes, I'm adding in 4 teaspoons or caps full of vanilla extract. That's a tablespoon for the recipe. And I am going to mix that in. You know, I'm leery about over mixing my batter, so I'm just going to mix this in just like that. And then once I get it all mixed in, I am adding, the recipe calls for 2.5 cups of flour. I almost forgot that, but it's 2.5 cups of flour that I'm alternating with a cup of buttermilk. You know, I'm going to do the flour in thirds and then the buttermilk twice. And that's the last of the buttermilk, and then coming up is the last of the flour, y'all. And I am just going to let this beat until till that flour is barely into the batter. And then I'm going to take it immediately off the stand. As you see right here, I've taken it off the stand, and you can still kind of see there is some flour that hasn't mixed too well, but that's okay, because this is where I am just going to fold it all in and make sure everything is incorporated. And while I'm doing this, I have the oven preheated, y'all, to 350 degrees. And I am using two 9-inch well-greased pans here that I have lined with parchment paper. And I'm just going to spread the batter out evenly. Now, the recipe I'm following calls for two 8-inch pans, but I don't have 8-inch pans, so we're going to see how this goes. Now, according to the recipe, you're supposed to let this bake about 25 to 30 minutes. So what I did after placing them in the oven, I checked them at 25 minutes, y'all, and I opened that oven too soon. And when they came out, I kind of got, this is my little Mishap, kind of annoying to me, but I kind of got a little sinking, and I believe it's because I opened the oven too soon. But the total baking time, y'all, for these cakes was about 40 minutes, y'all. And here I am making up my frosting with 2 sticks of butter that I whipped up real well, y'all, and adding 3 cups of powdered sugar in parts, of course, kind of just working it in into my butter, and along with about 2 capfuls of milk. Let's get that milk in there to kind of break this up a bit. Okay, there's my 2 capfuls of milk. At this point, whatever milk you use, you know, it'll do. And then I'm also adding 2 capfuls of vanilla extract, as well as a pinch of salt. And again, I'm just gonna work the batter in until I get the consistency that I like. I'm just going to keep whipping it until it get nice and whippy. And you see my pinch of salt going in, and I'm just going to keep whipping this up, y'all. Whipping it up. And once I've gotten that consistency that I like, and I didn't have to add any more milk to it, those 2 capfuls worked. After getting that cake out of the pan, y'all, you can still kind of slightly see that sinking, y'all, but I just flopped that delicious buttercream batter right there in the middle and spreaded it out. I wasn't going for anything fancy, y'all, whatsoever. I kind of like that rustic look, but you saw that I added a bunch of sprinkles in the middle. What a surprise. And this is what we have right here, a cake for all occasions, any and all occasions. And we're going to cut right there into it. And y'all, it came out nice and fluffy, sink and all. And when I'm telling you, it does not matter what if your cake sink, as long as that baby is absolutely delicious. And this vanilla cake right here was just that. Now, I hope you try this, y'all, and let me know how it turns out. Thanks for watching.